Welcome back to Ladies Edition podcast. Y'all, I know we shouldn't have left y'all without a dope beat to step two, but here we are. We're back. We know we're trifling. Well, Shelly is, but we know that you guys have been missing our voices. So we are back, and you can actually blame me because I had surgery, and we'll get to that in another episode. But I'm excited about today. But first, let me remind you who we are. I'm Shamika.
And I'm Shelly Cheyenne. Hey, everybody. Long time, but we're back, hopefully to continue our shows.
Yes. And so I'm excited about today's guest. Even though we didn't work together, we worked at the same place at different times.
Mhm.
Karla Redditte is a freelance multimedia journalist. You know, her career includes more than 20 years as a TV reporter, anchor, videographer in various news markets throughout the country. But she hung up her news microphone in November 2024, and I can relate. But she continues to be a storyteller through content creation. And y'all, if you haven't seen it, go check out her videos on skincare, travel, and small businesses. I mean, she's got me like wanting to sign up for all the things just because I've been watching her videos. Well, welcome, Karla.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be on this show. I feel like I know you because we follow each other on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'm not on LinkedIn as much as I should be, but every time I log on, I see something from you. So I said, let's see what Shamika's talking about. So so it's nice to meet you virtually at
It
least.
is nice to meet you. But you've spent a lot of time in front of the camera telling
Yes.
other people's stories. So can you
Yes.
start by telling us your own health journey? Because and I don't even know if I told you, both Shelly and I had fibroids and we both had hysterectomies.
Oh,
So
wow.
this is how we ended up here.
Okay. Okay.
So let's start with, when did you realize something was wrong?
Honestly, I always say it started like maybe back in 2016 or 2017. That's when I was diagnosed. But when I really think about it, I want to say this journey probably started when I was in high school. I remember that I had like horrible cramps whenever I had, each month for my period. Fortunately, I went to an all girls high school, and in that school, they had a room just dedicated to girls lying down because of cramps. It had two hospital beds in it. And I want to say I would use that room at least once every 3 to 4 months. And we could, skip a class or something like that and just lie down. But I just remember, being so active in high school, and yet those periods were vicious. And so I really believe it started back then in high school. Um, Horrible cramps to where it felt like I wanted to. And sometimes I did vomit. Um, you know, couldn't really focus. It was just painful. And so when I was 18, I think I was about to go off to college. And my doctor at the time, and this is what was going on at that time, the doctor put me on birth control because that's what masked everything. And so that's when it really started, I think.
So when being 18 and having to go on birth control so young, I
Right.
know, that in itself can change a lot of
Yes.
things in a woman's bodies.
Yes.
But after that, how did that handle your fibroids? Did it I don't want to say cure it because obviously it
Right.
doesn't, but did you experience even issues then on the birth control, or how did you handle?
Really, not really. I want to say the birth control masks all the symptoms. I felt a little bit better on the birth control, and everything was going fine. Real well, I shouldn't say fine because really it
Mhm.
wasn't. But for me, the symptoms were a little bit easier up until maybe 2016, 2017. And that's when I want to say I started just feeling just a little bit worse with my cramps. And I happened to be lying in bed one morning and I knew something was wrong. And I was just kind of feeling around my abdomen and I could feel something. It wasn't as hard as a rock, but it was hard enough to make me pay attention.
Mhm.
Um, and so I just kept kind of feeling around. And when I went to the doctor, basically it was my uterus that I was feeling because the fibroids were pushing, and that's why I could feel like a little bit of hardness. It was pushing my uterus out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I
It,
don't know if you were as dramatic as I was, because I was like, oh gosh, it's a tumor, it's something, please.
right. Right. I mean, it is scary. And you know, they tell us not to go and Google anything. And of course, that's what I did.
Mhm.
But you know, around that time, like 2016, 2017, you know, we were hearing a little bit more about fibroids. And so
Mhm.
I kind of thought maybe that may be what I'm going through, because I had been diagnosed maybe a few years earlier with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I knew it was something going on perhaps with that, but I wasn't really sure. So when I went to the doctor, she confirmed that I did have fibroids. And I had about, I want to say 7 fibroids, and the largest one was the size of a small orange. That's what was
Mm.
pushing that uterus out.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. So coming from TV news,
Yeah,
I like to blame the fibroids on the stress of news, but
that's part of it.
but
Yeah,
anyway, I wondered because
yeah,
you probably worked random hours, those
yes,
early morning hours.
yes,
How do you think that might have affected what you were like, the PCOS and then
yeah.
fibroids? How did you just deal with that? Plus, you're probably not sleeping like you should.
That was the big thing. You know, sleep is very important. But I was also working an early morning shift, meaning I was getting up at 2 in the morning to be at work at 3, to go on air at 5.
Hmm.
Um, and then, you know, it's hard when you have those hours. It's hard to go to sleep, because I was trying to go to sleep at 5 and 6 in the evening, and especially in the summers, the sun is still shining through.
Right.
It's still shining through the window. So I mean, it's hard to go to sleep, and then once you're asleep, once you're really in that deep sleep, it's time to get up again. So it's not only just sleep; it's also what I was talking about. I'm sure every day. You know, before um, you know, I hung up that microphone in November of 2024. It was so much going on in news. I mean, I was covering everything from, you know, the presidential campaign to what was going on in Israel and Hamas. It was, and then at the time it was a hurricane. Which hurricane came through North Carolina,
Oh,
Shamika? Was it
Helene.
Helene?
Helene.
Hurricane Helene. And so it was 3 huge things that I was covering as a breaking news reporter for our national streaming website. It was just so much going on top of not getting sleep. I do believe that some of that contributes to fibroids and other, you know, gynecological problems. But yeah, that was my life. That was my life, you know, here in North Carolina. And that's been my life really since I started out in 2002.
Mhm.
Working different hours, of course, but those morning hours are tough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very tough.
We're entitled to compensation.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Now we hear a lot of things about fibroids and how they come about. We know, or I believe, and it sounds like you as well. Stress is a factor. Maybe certain foods that we're eating is a
Yes.
factor. I know when I was diagnosed at 41,
Uh-huh.
I had about 10 large fibroids.
Yeah.
2 were the size of a grapefruit, and I don't know how they got there. So
Right.
we can assume, and even the doctors that I know I spoke to said, "Oh, it's stress. It could be foods that you're eating, all the things." What do you feel outside of stress led to your not only the discovery but your treatment options that you went by? Where was that discussion with your doctor?
I think for me, I have a little bit of a history, family history. I have one aunt that had fibroids years ago. But she, as far as I know, she's the only one that's been affected by that. My mom said she never had any, but their other sister, my other aunt, she didn't have that problem as well. So I think it may be a little bit of a family history for me. I've always eaten pretty well. Sometimes I do have a sweet tooth. I will admit to that, but it's not a constant thing. But I do think sugar, you know, from what I've heard, contributes to that. We've also started to hear a lot more about relaxers. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not sure how that contributes, but I wore relaxers for many years.
Mhm.
I want to say I started in maybe 7th or 8th grade. My mom allowed me to get my first relaxer. And I didn't stop until maybe 2012, 2013. And that's a while. That's a while to put chemicals, on your scalp that seep into your skin. That may have been a contributing factor as well. But I do believe some of mine is genetic. So we talked a lot about that. We also, I changed my diet, tried to cut out a lot of the sweets. My first surgery was, 2016, 2017. I can't remember exactly the year. And that's when I had the myomectomy to remove the fibroids. And I thought I was, good to go. Changed my diet a little bit, everything would be fine. Then it came back. So, and that's when I got it treated here in Charlotte back in 2024. Had the UFE, that's the uterine fibroid embolization. Thought I would be okay after that until July of this year. And we still do not know exactly what it was. We think it may have been just a huge fibroid that caused a lot of problems for me, or sarcoma. So it's all kind of dating back though to fibroids.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back July. So you
Okay.
have UFE
Yeah.
last year.
Yes.
So what happened in July of this year? Is that when you had a hysterectomy?
That's when I had the hysterectomy.
Okay.
It was so much going on because it wasn't just a hysterectomy. It was a mass that they saw in my abdomen. I didn't know exactly what it was. And so I talked to the doctor and he was just telling me, no matter what, we have to get this mass out. At first they were thinking it may have been a fibroid or just a huge fibroid or what. They didn't know what was going on. And he told me he would not know until he got in there to see, because that mass was kind of hiding a lot of things. And so when I woke up from the surgery, I had a hysterectomy, everything gone, uterus, ovaries, everything. That's gone. But they also saw like some tumors, like around my, like colon, like the large intestine, things like that. So I also had to have a colonoscopy or a colostomy bag. So I have that right now as well, which is just temporary, but that's what I'm going through. But he was just saying when he lifted that mass out, it was nothing but fluid. And so he truly believes, again, this is not certain, but he truly believes that when I had the myomectomy back in like 2016, and that was, of course, a robotic type situation. They believe that a small piece of tissue from those from the fibroids then fell back into my body and started to grow again, and that caused the mass. Oh, honey, yes, and that's how I looked at it too. I'm
sorry, we're a little over animated,
Yes.
but what, like I've just never heard anything like this.
Right. But I mean, but when you think about it, when you think that, they have the robotic instruments or whatever that go inside and make those little slits and go in there and get those, the fibroids out, it could possibly happen. And he believes that's what happened. And this, in my case, has been going to like different medical schools all over the country. And it's all coming back the same thing. They do believe that from that myomectomy, a small piece of tissue fell back in and just over time started to grow. And it got so full of fluid to where I couldn't breathe. That's why I had to go to the hospital really a week before my hysterectomy was scheduled. I had to go in to the ER because I couldn't breathe. That fluid was just starting to come up into my lungs and into my abdomen that I had to have like different procedures to suck the fluid out of my lungs and to suck it out of the abdomen. Oh, it was a journey. And it's still a journey because again, they still are not sure exactly if that was indeed a fibroid or if it was a sarcoma, but they're leaning more to the fibroid.
Oh,
I know.
sorry. I am so sorry.
Well, thank you.
I think Shelley is speechless.
Right. I'm blessed to still be here.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. We are so glad you are.
Even just with the fluid in the lungs. I mean, I've had sepsis, and I didn't know that until really I got to the hospital. I had heard of sepsis before, And I knew that I didn't feel well, and I knew that I was kind of struggling to breathe, but I didn't realize I was that bad. But organs were starting, the kidneys and everything are starting to, it's kind of like fight or flight. They were just gasping for air, gasping for life. So
Wow.
it's been a journey. It is. But fortunately, I'm on the other side of it.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Shamika and I have done this show for what now, 3 years? Maybe
Wow.
2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, about
Um,
off and
and
on.
just the stories that we've heard from other women as well. This is why we do it, because of our own experiences. Both of us had the myomectomies. We've obviously had hysterectomies, but it's like just our and the stories that we've heard are so important for women, especially women of color, to
Yes.
keep hearing it, because you'd be surprised. There's a lot of women who sit back and are like, "Oh, I've never had that. I've never had that," because I was one of them. I've never had any problems. I never had nothing going on with me until I was hit with the fibroids. And I said,
Yep.
"What is that? What are that?
Right.
Girl, where are those at?" Like
Yes.
I said, "No, that's not me." Like, I
Right.
never had any issues. And it's amazing to hear all that you went through, starting with the fibroids, and how fibroids can just create such havoc
Yeah.
in our bodies that
Yes.
we don't even realize it,
Right.
because there's not enough, doctors that are talking about it, and
Right.
especially talking to us about it.
Mm-hmm.
My own experience, I had a myomectomy in 2016. I had all these fibroids, and I was like, how did they get there? And what are we going to do about it? How
Right.
come none of my previous doctors ever talked about that with me? And one surgeon said, these have probably been in you for about 10 years because of the
Wow.
size. And I'm like,
Wow.
I've had doctors for 10 years, over 10 years,
Yeah.
and no one has ever said, "Hey, do you notice any changes in your cycles? Do you notice it?" Any of the keywords that would have sparked this conversation to be had. Um, when
Right.
you learned of the options that you had to, I guess, you know, help
Mm-hmm.
take care of this situation. Hysterectomy, I'm sure, was the number one thing that they said. Or after your UFE, did they go straight to the hysterectomy? Did they say, "Look, this is it. This is what we're going to have to do"? And how did you deal with that? Because hysterectomies, that's final for
Right.
us.
Right.
So how did you handle that emotionally?
Really, I've never been a type to just want children.
Okay.
Not that I hate kids or anything like that. But you know how sometimes when you're in high school and in college, and it's some young ladies that's the goal. They
Yeah.
eventually want to have children, get married and have children. That's
Mhm.
never been what I say, my ministry.
Same.
I love children. I
Yeah.
do. I have a nephew, I have, little cousins or whatever, but that's never what I really just wanted for me. Now, had it happened, that would have been fine, but that's just not something I would always seek out at all. And so after I had my, myomectomy, and then I had the UFE, my doctors actually said, do you want to have that traditional surgery to remove the fibroid? So
Mm.
for them, hysterectomy was not the first option, but I just didn't want to go through that again. I said, I've had the myomectomy, I've had the UFE, take it out. And I was in so much pain at that point. I said, give me the knife. I'll do it myself. That's just how I felt.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I wasn't really just emotionally tied to it like that, just because I really didn't. I don't really want children. Um, I just wanted to feel good again. I wanted to feel normal. So that's what it was for me. It wasn't a sad situation, and it was something
Mhm.
because a lot of the nurses, when they were coming in, and they knew that I was having the hysterectomy, but even after, a lot of them were saying, I'm sorry, and they were,
Yeah.
very apologetic. But not all women want children,
Yeah.
So I was fine with it. I just want to feel better.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly where I was. I was like,
yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah.
right.
I'm good. Now, Like when Shelley was saying about, when she had her myomectomy,
Yeah.
It's interesting how each story has, you never know what can happen after a myomectomy. My story was I lost um, feeling in my leg and was walking around with a cane for a year and a half, like,
Wow.
and they could not figure out what happened. Something happened during that surgery that made me lose feeling in my leg.
Oh,
And then my
wow.
leg got weaker and weaker and weaker. And
Mhm.
so, it's so sad that they haven't gotten this figured out yet.
It really is.
Surgery was 2013,
Hmm.
and it was going doctor to doctor, especially around the Charlotte area. And they
Okay.
all kept coming up with things like, oh, you had a stroke. Oh, you had this. Oh, you had this. And it was like, no, I
Yeah.
didn't. So
Right.
and then you have to advocate for yourself. And so I went
Yes.
to my doctor, my GP, and he said, you know what? I'm going to send you to Wake Forest and
Okay.
let you see a neurologist there. That doctor got me literally on the good foot within a few months.
Okay.
Because he was able to,
Wow.
he's like, I've seen this before. This is what this is. And this was just a he said that it was from how they placed me on the table to do the surgery.
Really?
And so now after every surgery after that, I'm like, make sure you place me correctly. Don't put me to sleep till I see how you got me laying here.
Wow.
but but I
Oh,
wanted to also ask, because you mentioned the colostomy bag.
yes.
Can
Yes.
you, one, explain what that is, and two, how was that adjustment for you, even emotionally?
Now, I think that was harder, a little bit harder for me than the hysterectomy. When the surgeons went in, and he had already warned me of this, he said, if I see anything in there, it's my duty as a doctor to do what I need to do to make sure other organs are not impacted. And so when they went in there, they did see spots of cancer, like especially around my large intestine. And so he said he had to create that colostomy, which basically it looks like like a red ball. Just picture, if you've never seen like a colostomy bag, it looks like, just picture a clown's red nose
Okay.
on my like on the side of my belly button.
Mhm.
And basically, that's how, like what what kids would say, poo. That's how poo comes out. Now, this is temporary because he said he had to disconnect it in order to get that cancer off, make sure everything was okay. He
Mhm.
wants to make sure that heals before reconnecting it again. And so that's why I say it's temporary. So I
Mhm.
have what looks like that little nose, and all it is just my large intestine, and they've kind of created like this, like a ball, and it has maybe a tube or something for everything to basically come through. And I have a bag like hooked to me, kind of like a maybe a fancier plastic bag that's glued right here on my side here. And that's basically how I do number two.
Okay.
Um, I didn't even know when I woke up in the hospital that I had that. I knew that that was a possibility. But,
Mhm.
of course, I'm just thinking, I'm going to be okay, just going to wake up. But everything on the inside is going to be gone, but everything is going to look, once it heals, look the same. And so
Mhm.
when I woke up, I honestly did not even look at the bandages. I knew that I had bandages, on my abdomen,
Mhm.
but I didn't really, really look into it. Um, and plus, I didn't really feel well either. But then when my, surgeon came in and he was telling me, everything went well, but he said, I was telling you about if I find something that I'm going to have to create that colostomy or ostomy. That's what they call it, an ostomy, just so you can use the bathroom or whatever uh, normally,
Mhm.
make sure everything comes out, but this is what we had to create. And so I was, we were talking or whatever, and I was like, yeah, I remember you said that. And he said, well, you have, because I hadn't even looked down there.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think I was more concerned and just nervous about that because
Mhm.
that was something I wasn't expecting. Even though he told me that was a possibility, I wasn't expecting that, and I'd never, I guess, been around someone. I don't think I don't think I had been around someone that had a colostomy bag, so I didn't know, how it worked. I was, concerned about changing the bag. I'd never done that.
Mhm.
Just worried about doing the wrong thing. And I wanted to make sure I took care of the ostomy and the opening and all like that. So once they explained it to me, and after a few times, it's second nature at this point. But yeah, that was harder for me than the hysterectomy. Yeah.
I'm just curious, how long is temporary? Because you had your surgery July.
I had the surgery in July. They're waiting at least 6 to 9 months to
Okay.
have it reversed, just because they want to make sure all the scar tissue has been settled and things like that. Because the reversal process, it goes along the same line as where my scar is now, and so they just want to make sure that the scar tissue is settled, that everything is completely healed for them to reconnect everything. So I'd say probably December, January
Okay.
for a reversal. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's um it's interesting that you're sharing such of a vulnerable,
Yeah.
part of your life that many of us wouldn't. When Shamika and I started this show, I know I she had to convince me to share because
Yeah.
my mother she was still alive at the time, and I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on this show on everybody's internet." Talking about my
Yes.
private, my vagina, all this stuff. She gonna have a problem with this, and so just
Right.
being a private person, and
Yeah.
you being someone it's this in journalism, in the news, people know your face, your beautiful face. How did you feel about coming forward, even right now, sharing such an amazing story, a journey that you're still on, and being um you never we don't know we know how media can take things and can
Oh
switch
yeah.
things and judge you for your decisions. I know I was judged for my decision to have a hysterectomy. I felt the same way you did about children. I love
Right.
children, just not
Yes.
for me to
Right.
personally physically, and it wasn't a harsh part of my life that I would never have. But
Right.
having this space now, how social media is, and sharing such a amazing story and a heartbreaking story because you have to deal with this and go through this.
Yeah.
How are you able to share, and why do you feel to share such a personal, private story?
Honestly, before I even knew, what was going on inside this last go round, I had been thinking that I was having perimenopause symptoms. And
Mm-hmm.
I still was on a smaller scale, though not as much as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved how so many women these days are talking about perimenopause.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've listened to, several podcasts about that. And it's helped me because my mom, like you were mentioning your mom, my
Mm-hmm.
mom is from a generation that they don't really talk about health things in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I knew about my aunt having fibroids because I overheard them talking when I was younger. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that I think a lot of, especially Black families, don't really talk about. It's not a huge discussion. But when it comes to us now going to the doctor and they're asking about family history, we need to know.
Yeah.
We need to know the back. Did grandma have it? Did her mom
Mm-hmm.
have something going on that that of, but just were told not to talk about or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? And so, ever since I've been listening to some of the perimenopause and other health, podcasts, I've been more open about my story because I also have a young cousin. She's not even, well, no, she's 2, but I want her to be able to, when she grows up, to know what to look out for, just what symptoms to look out for, perhaps when she's a teenager and starts her period or something like that. I want her to know that, you know, this is not new,
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid. And I'm sure by the time she gets older, it'll be a lot more, treatments and things like that. But I just want us to talk more about it. I want to be part of the generation that talk. We don't have to tell all of our business, but at least talk to your family about what's going on with you,
Yeah.
because it may help somebody else in the family. And
Mhm.
if it
Mm-hmm.
is like a family history, what do we need to do to stop it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some things we need to be, I think we need to be open about. And I know a lot of, especially a lot of Black women are going through similar things. And so I think that also helps me to tell my story as well.
Mhm.
But I think some things we need to stop being so secretive about, especially health in
Yeah.
our families. Now, again, we don't have to get on television and talk about what's going on, but at least talk to
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you said you had everything removed. So now are you in full-blown menopause? And if so, I guess you would be. But
Yes.
what symptoms are you experiencing now? Because, I tend to think like, even I just had surgery and I was like freaking out thinking, okay, now I got a toothache. Now my body can't focus on healing this because it's got to focus on this. And then it can't have that. Like it was too much.
Right. I think my main thing now is hot flashes. I mean, it's been kind of rough. So that I think that's my main thing. It's probably sometimes joints hurt, like in my legs or something like that. But I also know just from a podcast, I learned that I can take collagen. So I've started taking that, and that definitely helps me as well. Yeah, you do too, huh, Shamika?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think those are the main things. I think it's definitely getting to learn my body again
Mhm.
because I can definitely tell a difference. Um, Before my surgery in July, I wasn't feeling well enough to really exercise like I used to. I would walk a little bit, but I certainly didn't do weights like I should. And so since I was basically lying down for so long, before the surgery and then in the hospital for 2 weeks, still lying down, I lost a lot of muscle mass.
Yeah.
And so I've learned really the importance, even though I knew it was important to lift weights before. Now, post menopause now, I definitely know the importance of weights and walking, but especially weights, because once you lose that muscle mass, it kind of changes just the look of your body. And so I'm trying to get back, to lifting weights and, and doing a little bit more. And I understand now the importance of lifting weights for your core. Just all things like that. I'm very aware of now.
Mhm. Okay.
I really feel like menopause, like you just said, I feel like a science project now. I feel
Yes.
like there's so much going on and things that we weren't even told before we had our hysterectomies about
Mhm.
how you fixing to go into surgical menopause, you fixing to have it. So
Yes.
however old you are, I think, what was that, 46, I think I
Okay.
was when I had
Yes.
my hysterectomy. So
Uh-huh.
we're now feeling all of the effects, and I don't feel strong. I don't feel, like my old self. I
Right.
don't feel in control of anything. Now it's just like, meh, I guess, yep, that joint hurts. Well, yeah, it's like
Right.
I don't know
Right.
what to do. And the doctors, if they feel you're in a certain age, or if you got, God forbid, some weight on you, then it's, you're obese
Yeah.
and you're going through menopause. But it's like all these things can just start tearing at a woman's
Mm-hmm.
confidence
Mm-hmm.
and who you once were, and this whole science project that you got to figure out now for however the duration of menopause is. How do you maintain your emotional, your mental strength, your resilience, that old feeling that you used to have prior to everything going the way it is now with menopausal symptoms? How do you maintain that?
For me, I force myself to go out and do things because I know that's what I need to do. I need to be around people. It's easy, especially right after surgery. It's easy to kind of lay around at home and I'm not going to say feel sorry for yourself, but it's just easy to not do anything. You
Yeah.
don't want to move, you don't want to mess up anything, in your abdomen, and you also are trying to get used to that. Kind of an empty feeling, like physically empty, because your uterus is gone. And
Yeah.
so you're still trying to navigate how to, walk around and still exercise and just things like that. So really, I force myself. I take vitamins, and different supplements just to help my brain, because brain fog is part of it too.
Yes.
And for me, I'm not able to take hormone replacement therapy. And a lot of women use, HRT to feel like themselves. Well, see, I have to find something else because I can't have that much estrogen in my body, because that's what caused, quite a bit of my problems. Until the doctor said, no, you're not a candidate, at least right now, you're not a candidate for HRT. So I'm trying to find other ways, to keep myself positive. I go out and walk quite a bit, especially when the sun is out. I like to do that. That definitely helps. Again, taking collagen, taking omega-3s, and just things that I know that will help me. Getting out around people, just I went back to church physically. I've been watching, but I went back to church physically just last Sunday because I felt well enough to do it. But I also knew that I need to just get back out there. And once you do that, you really kind of start to feel better, and then you don't have time to feel sorry for yourself because you're focused on everything else that's going on around you. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Well, we should be walking partners because I'm trying to get out the house
Okay.
and walk
Yes.
more, and I I think I fell into that, just stay in the house, and because now I bought a recliner and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go outside where people
Yeah.
are.
Right. Right. I'm not a big concert person or anything like that, so I'm not going to. Now I do like festivals, ever so often. So sometimes I do have to just force myself because I know that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation, but for the last question, what message do you want women listening today to take away from your story? Is there something they should make sure they ask their doctor, or like, can you give them hope? Like, what message would you give them?
If you think something is wrong in your body, no matter how small that feeling is, go get it checked out. I think for me, this last time, I think I waited a little bit too long, which is why I was in sepsis, why I experienced that. I just kind of thought that this was part of perimenopause, but I knew something was going on. So as soon as you have a tinge of uncertainty, get it checked out. And if the doctor kind of brushes you off or whatever, or if you don't feel that the diagnosis is correct, get a second opinion, and don't be shy about it. Get checked out. Don't rely on Google or because Google will kill you, basically.
It's true.
But definitely get it checked out as soon as you feel that something is off about your body. That's my main advice. I think, again, I waited a little bit too long. So don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Karla, we do appreciate you so much telling your story, and we think that we know that it helps other women. Actually, those that are very private, that may not want to share their stories or may not feel comfortable speaking up for themselves when they do go to the doctors. When we constantly, Shamika and I both constantly tell our listeners, be your own advocate, because if
Yes.
not, they'll just tell you anything and they'll just
Yes.
send you on out the door.
Right.
So we appreciate you sharing your story, because it is going to reach a lot of women who will look at you and say, oh, okay, well, wait a minute, I felt that too, or this is happening to me, or maybe I need to ask questions, not wait for the questions to be asked to me by my doctors.
Right.
And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing and being vulnerable and telling us your amazing story. And we just wish you the best. We know that I'm a firm believer, I know Shamika is too, that God is always in control. And we just want you to continue to stay positive, stay in the sunshine, as one of my girlfriends say all the time. No matter what's going on, just stay in the sunshine and continue telling your story, because it is helping a lot of women.
Well, I want to thank both of you as well for this platform, because like you said, you're reaching a lot of women, and especially Black women. We need to, talk about this a little bit more so we know what we're all going through, and know that we're not alone. So thank you to both of you for this platform.
Now, is there somewhere people can follow your journey? I don't know if you're going to continue to tell your journey on social media, but is there somewhere that people can follow you online?
You have, I'm on Instagram, not a lot, but I am on Instagram. It's Karla on Air. So it's Karla on Air. I tell my story there on TikTok. I love TikTok, and that's KREDD UGC. So KREDD UGC.
Thank you, Karla.
Yes,
I'm so glad that you were, because I know I just slid all in your LinkedIn DMs like,
that's
hey,
fine. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Shelly, tell everybody where they can find us online because I never remember.
We are on all the platforms. So we're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Ladies Editions Podcast. You can definitely reach out to us there. If you have a story that you would like for us to cover, we'd be glad to cover that story, and just check us out.
Well, y'all, we'll be back soon, I promise.
Until then, later.
It might be another month, but we'll be back. Let's see.
Thank you, ladies.